The way that the media class has reacted to Elon Musk speaking with Donald Trump truly says it all. They do not want you to be able to hear people that they deem inessential, non-viable apparatchiks for power. And that is a huge thing to consider because Donald Trump wants someone loved by the media class, the regime, and those within the establishment itself before he decided to actually run. Of course, Donald Trump running for office was done so specifically under the request of Hillary Clinton and the Obama administration, subversively Hillary Clinton and her campaign believing that Donald Trump would have been a far easier figure to defeat within that of the political race. Well, we saw how that unfolded. Anyways, what's so absolutely and utterly hilarious, but once again as revealing as the day is long, is that the media is once again using endless talking points and repeating them consistently to try and make sure that they can carpet bomb that of the news landscape that you're consistently consuming, so we can make sure that the only thing you're interacting with is the talking points that we're putting out there. And if we're doing that, then that means we're saturating that landscape to the point where anyone who is presenting an operational understanding of, let's say, the situation at hand and doing so in complete opposition to the standard of what we're presenting, well, you see, the expert class has already deemed that these are the talking points that are being used and this is what needs to be focused on. So why is it that you, the dissident, are sitting there focusing on these ridiculous things that simply don't matter? Of course, the things that don't matter are actually the talking points that they're trying to use and beat you over the head with, but they'll never actually be honest about that fact because the corporate press is never honest. Now let's go ahead and jump in and see what's going on with the dishonest coverage of Elon Musk speaking with Donald Trump. Starting off with the Hollywood Reporter, and I know it's the Hollywood Reporter, but this presents the entirety of the framing that you need to realize what we're dealing with when it is that we talk about free and open conversation. Well, they don't want it because it defies the operational ethos of the regime. Here we see Elon Musk got EU disinformation warning before rambling Donald Trump interview on X. And there's one of the talking points, rambling. Once again, we can see that they're going to have one little kernel that they can hopefully run with, and then they're going to go ahead and take that inch and run the mile. And what I absolutely adore specifically about this is that the whole idea of, well, Donald Trump's just rambling, you see. Does anyone actually want to address within the corporate press that this is what Donald Trump does all the time? Because he is quite literally someone who is operating on a string of consciousness. He's not sitting there going off a teleprompter. And if he was, he wouldn't still be talking to us today because his brains would have been blown out the back of his scalp because he wouldn't have asked them to pull up the teleprompter when he did, rather than doing so at the end of his speech like he normally does. So clearly Trump operating on the whim of whatever the wind is going to take him, and in that direction he will blow. But that is exactly what we see he always does. But does the media address that? No. They just claim that Donald Trump was rambling. And the thing is, the reason they can actually say that is because Donald Trump is actually given the opportunity to respond in these instances. Many of the times in these interviews, let's say, which are realistically hostile encounters with corporate apparatchiks, they're trying to consistently interrupt Donald Trump. They stop him from talking. They never allow him to answer. And in that, we see that he's never allowed to actually completely fulfill whatever answer is required to completely, let's say, satisfy the question at hand. But does that matter to the corporate press? No, because Donald Trump will say one thing in response to what they're saying, and then they'll jump on that in a way to get an attack off. And that's exactly what we see so consistently. And since they have no opportunity to stop him talking in the moment, all they're going to say is, oh, well, he's just rambling. That's all Joe Biden has done for 4 years, and you haven't talked about that at all. Any of his gaffes, you've completely ignored them. But of course, that doesn't matter. Moving on now to the Atlantic, here we see Elon Musk throws a Trump rally. X is a safe space for the far right. Elon Musk, by the way, had also offered to host a space for Kamala Harris and have a conversation with her as well. Of course, she's not going to take him up on that. But here's the thing that I find so remarkable about this. They're like, oh, well, Elon Musk is throwing a Trump rally. One, if he was, who cares? Two, the fact is that is all of the different events that were hosted by outlets like CBS, ABC, CNN, and the like, and so many others, for people like Joe Biden when they were interviewing them and all of these different videos that they were posting online, were these also rallies, you see? Oh, well, they didn't have live viewership, so actually that doesn't count. It's like, yeah, but it was still viewed, and even if this was something that was done behind the scenes and then posted afterwards, it still would have been viewed in mass. But that doesn't matter, of course. They're just going to sit there and be like, well, Elon Musk hosted a Trump rally, never actually holding themselves to the same standards, of course, but nonetheless, I digress. Moving on now, here we see from the New York Times. Elon Musk is using X to push his views, and Donald Trump. Mr. Musk has become a vocal supporter of Mr. Trump. It wasn't always that way. And no, it wasn't. But Elon Musk saw what happened after he voted for Joe Biden and has seen the country dive into the dumpster. And because of the fact of the mass influx of immigration, all of the different people that are pouring into the country because of the end of Title 42, which is specifically tied to Biden's immigration policy, which Kamala Harris is specifically tied to, which will be quite fascinating to see her tackle that. Anyways, what do we see? That it's not just that, in fact, that it's also the inflationary debt spiral that we're suffering in, which Donald Trump, of course, also bears responsibility for. He always tries to blame Joe Biden for this specifically, but he is also on the hook for this. Here's the thing that I love. Elon Musk actually ends up correcting Donald Trump about inflation and explains it to him in the brass tacks level of what needs to be stated, that it is specifically caused by government overspending and irresponsible printing of money that causes this. And Donald Trump doesn't give it a real proper response, and you can see that he actually didn't even fully understand what inflation was in totality, which so many people don't. But here's the thing that's so big. Elon Musk was then recommending that he himself would be put on some form of a financial commission. Here we can see Musk pitches White House role in glitchy Trump interview. Billionaire entrepreneur calls for federal spending commission. Event on Musk's X platform started some 40 minutes late, which of course they're only specifically focusing on the timeline. And this is one of the only interesting articles I could actually find that covered Elon Musk bringing this up specifically and does so in depth. Articles linked in the description down below, all of them. Go check them out if you would like. Alrighty, jumping back to it. Here we see Elon Musk, like we already stated, using X to push his views and Donald Trump. And like I've already said, even if he was doing so, that doesn't matter. It's his platform. He has every right to do whatever it is that he wants with it. Just like Mark Zuckerberg had any right to do whatever it is that he wanted to with his platform, and that's exactly what the corporate press was saying for ages. And while he was doing so, pumping hundreds of millions of dollars into the Biden campaign, and on top of that, also doing censorship work for that of the entirety of the federal government at the behest of what was demanded when all of these social media companies were then hauled into Congress and effectively held out in front of a noose and told, well, if you don't cooperate with whatever it is that we want, we're going to effectively deem you responsible for whatever posts are put on your platform. And that is a huge issue because then they have liability for anything that is completely in opposition to the standards of Western civilization, which is where these companies operate, which is a absolute no-go for them. Okay. Jumping on now, here we see from The Guardian. So Donald chatted with Elon, and here's the future as they see it. Losers win, incompetence rules. Ah, yes. Losers and incompetence. That's exactly what Elon Musk and Donald Trump represent. Literal billionaires. Elon Musk, one of the most influential people on the planet. Donald Trump, one of the most influential people on the planet. Elon Musk, the richest man on earth. And of course, that makes him a loser, you see. Donald Trump, an individual quite literally recognizable by his silhouette. The most popular man on all of planet Earth. You could literally shine a bat signal into the sky with the shape of Donald Trump in it, and people would know who it was. But of course, you can see that this is something that only cultivates a future pushed by losers and incompetent fools, as is seen by The Guardian. Once again, the journalist class being proven to be nothing more than a joke. Jumping on here, we see The Guardian. The Musk-Trump X interview, a surprisingly dull meeting of two planet-sized egos. I'm going to be honest, if I'd accomplished everything that Elon Musk had accomplished, yeah, I'd probably have a bit of an ego as well. But the thing is, of course, we can see that that doesn't matter specifically. The Guardian itself, once again, not tackling any of the things that matter. Just using these boilerplate surface talking points to beat you over the head, to moralize and act like we're so much better than our opposition. Look at these ego-inflated fools you see. Absolutely insane. Now on to NPR. Light on news, heavy on personality. In Elon Musk and Donald Trump's X interview. Really, Light on news. Well, they did actually talk a lot about policy, which Kamala Harris does not do. Most recently, of course, talking about her economic policy, which is akin to that of Soviet-era price controls, which we saw only brought us to breadlines in that of the Eastern world. But of course, Kamala Harris doesn't know enough about history to actually address that in its minutia. So we can see that her economic policies not being popular, Donald Trump's being far more popular, as we have seen through many of the different polls that have come out as of late. But that doesn't matter, you see, because all they end up talking about is how this interview, well, it was heavy on personality, you see, even though they were actually talking about policy many of the times. Donald Trump wrong in some of these instances and not having all of the facts or, let's say, the right talking points to sell the narrative properly, to actually stand with the idealistic understanding of America first as he sees it and as many people see it, which realistically, Donald Trump not actually even being America first, if we're going to be completely blunt, complaining that Israel doesn't have enough influence in American politics when AIPAC is the most influential lobby in the entirety of American politics at this current point in time. But yeah, Donald Trump's America first, certainly. Anyways, stepping over here now, we see from Fox News, Kamala Harris campaign criticizes Trump for serving self-obsessed rich guys after interview with Elon Musk. There you go. That's the talking point. We're going to go ahead and try and buy off those hollow-headed college leftists and the communists and many of those people who are just sitting there within the socialistic ethos, because you see, it's just these self-obsessed rich guys. Of course, Kamala Harris being someone who is incredibly wealthy, and not only that, someone who works with many of these quote-unquote self-obsessed rich guys throughout the government and has never complained about it. Joe Biden, the person she was running with, a self-obsessed rich guy, because he was willing to run for the 2024 election, stating, no, I'm going to do it. And then he's kicked out post-haste by effectively nothing more than a coup to then place Kamala Harris into the position so that she could then run in 2024. But yes, you see, it's nothing more than self-serving for these self-obsessed rich white guys. Absolutely absurd. Here we jump onto The Independent. We see Trump repeats same talking points during Musk interview. And of course, a politician using talking points. Shocker, I know. But the former president's lisp steals the show. And that was something that I found utterly hilarious. They're like, oh my gosh, Donald Trump, he has a lisp. Can you believe it? Jumping here to Newsweek, Donald Trump's lisp during Elon Musk's interview raises questions. Really? Joe Biden's stutter and him quite literally losing not only a step on the cognitive staircase, but the entirety of the staircase itself wasn't enough for you to have concerns and raise questions for 4 years. But Donald Trump apparently having a lisp is something that you need to focus on. Are we serious right now? No, of course not, because the corporate press is not filled with serious people. On to USA Today, we see Elon Musk's interview with Donald Trump was an embarrassing disaster. Now we jump over here to Politico. Trump's interview with Musk devolves into yet another X-catastrophe. Framing that, well, you see Elon Musk's ruling over Twitter, it's clearly been nothing more than a catastrophe, an outright disaster, you see. And it could have been the fact that there is a possible cyber attack that had unfolded on Twitter servers, as Elon Musk had stated. Are we entirely sure if that's the case? No, he could have lied. It also could have been because of the massive amounts of traffic that were flooding the website to watch this live. That could have also been an issue. Elon Musk could have stated that, but that very well may have been something where he's giving away the capacity of what Twitter can handle. And if that is something that you reveal, well, then what you've revealed is the nature of how many bots you would need to flood the website with to completely capsize it. But of course, that's something that we don't need information getting out about if you were someone who, let's say, owns the company and doesn't want it to be destroyed by the regime, because Elon Musk claiming that he spent $44 billion for free speech, which is certainly something that the establishment is not a fan of. Now we jump over here to Wired. Donald Trump and Elon Musk's X space took forever to start, and then never ended. Musk laughed and agreed as Trump described a nation on the verge of the apocalypse, even where it put him at odds with the tycoon's own business interests. Wow, it put him at odds with his business interests, and he was still agreeing and openly speaking about what it is that he thinks. Maybe it's because he's willing to actually tell the truth, as many people within that of, I don't know, the journalist class could never even conceive. On to Reuters, rambling Trump-Musk interview marred by tech issues. Ah, yes, tech issues. That's the important thing to focus on. Not the actual minutia of what went down in the conversation between Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Reuters barely actually reporting on any of this and just sidestepping and only using talking points once again. And Reuters puts out some good stuff on occasion. They've had some decent Ukraine coverage, but of course, as we see when it comes to Donald Trump, Trump derangement syndrome kicks into high gear, and they don't have any ability to talk about the minutia of anything, much like many of these people. Here we jump onto the New York Times. Musk's Trump talk. After glitchy start, a 2-hour ramble. And there you can see glitchy, rambling. Once again, these are the talking points that are being run with, whether it is that the NPC firmware update was given top down, or someone simply wrote one article and all of these different people who are non-thinking entities saw that and then latched onto those talking points and ran with it. Either way, these people do not actually think for themselves, thus they cannot be trusted as someone who is meant to tell you the truth by delivering the news. Here we see from The Guardian, Donald Trump rambles and lies repeatedly in interview with Elon Musk. And is it that Donald Trump was lying, or is it that he's simply talking about some things that he quite literally doesn't know about? He's an old man. He's not informed on all of the minutia of everything that matters. If you wanted to actually have proof of this, simply look at the fact of all it is who he hired and fired during his time through presidency in 2016 to 2020. Very clearly not knowing enough of what he needed to know, and that is what we saw him making the wrong decisions about, which very well could have been perceived by the America First right as, well, Donald Trump lied to us and he brought more people into the swamp. Or is it that he didn't know enough and thus he was talking about things that he was unaware of, which very well could have been the case here. Jumping on to CNN, here we see, fact check, Trump made at least 20 false claims in his conversation with Elon Musk. Okay, so 20 false claims, I'm going to be completely honest. Is it the fact of, like I said, that he was stating things that he didn't know about, or was it he was openly lying? And these false claims only being 20, I'm going to be completely honest, comparatively to what we've seen with so many different politicians giving talking points and just nonsensically lying on repeat over and over and over again when they're in interviews, I'm surprised that we didn't actually see more falsities come out of Trump's mouth. I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm not a Biden supporter. I'm not even an independent, realistically. I'm a libertarian anarchist type, and I hate all of these motherfuckers, so I'm going to sit here and criticize every single one of them, and I'm not going to use these lame-ass fucking talking points that these absolute retards in the corporate press use. We're going to talk about what actually matters on all sides. Finishing this off, here we see from the New York Times, Musk tees up softball questions for Trump on X after technical problems. And once again, we can see that it doesn't matter if you actually have an honest and open dialogue with someone when you consistently see the framing of what's delivered within the conversations or hostile interviews that are presented with Donald Trump to the world, many of the times by that of CNN, ABC, and so many of these other apparatchik outlets. Well, when you see something like this, a simple conversation with Donald Trump as Elon Musk wanted to have, simply trying to talk to the man rather than the presentation that has been given to the world, it seems that of, I don't know, maybe softball questions rather than sitting there trying to press the issue and hold someone's feet to the fire and their neck to the guillotine, because that is exactly what we see the corporate press try and do, except they're treating Donald Trump like a witch rather than that of someone who has, I don't know, the standard of being able to operate off of innocent until proven guilty, and they'd rather just sit there and see if they can burn him at the stake, and if he survives, he's a witch, and if he dies, he's a person, and if we drown him, well, if he comes back up to the surface, then clearly he's a witch, and he's the Antichrist, and if he drowns, then sadly he's a person, and we just took his life, but you see, it was necessary to save the democracy that we value so much. This is very clearly how we see the corporate press operate, and it's never going to change, which is exactly why they're going to die a swift death, so fast in fact that it will be even quicker than that of what we saw with the newspapers, because their relevance is dwindling, and all of the bullshit that we just went through is a perfect example of exactly why. I'm gonna go ahead and call it there. Thank you for watching. If you got this far, thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. Tell me where I'm wrong in the comment section down below. Stay lovely, stay great, and most importantly, my friends, as always, tell someone you love them. Peace out.